Welcome, KK.
Thank you.
We are here to talk about yet another new piece of terminology. Might not be new for you, of course. AI arbitrage, and what is it, and how can companies sort of unlock it? Being our core sort of topic of discussion today. In financial markets, arbitrage is usually referred to as risk-free profit, right? So am I right to extend that logic? Can you tell us what AI arbitrage actually means in practice?
Yeah, look, I think we sort of came up with it with all of that in mind.
Yeah.
So people are used to the term of labor arbitrage, but we believe in AI arbitrage, and I'll tell you what that means. So think about AI arbitrage as an economic model that is our way of assuring outcomes for clients by operationalizing AI in the enterprise. That's what it is. Pricing is truth. And so if you actually don't make it integral to the way that you think about the economic model and the hyper efficiencies you can draw as a result of taking advantage of what artificial intelligence and agents provides, then I think you're sort of missing the point. And so that's how we think about it, and that's really what AI arbitrage is.
So please correct me if I'm summarizing this wrong. So it's essentially reorienting your operating model.
Yes.
To win from better deployment of the technology.
That is absolutely right. I think there's way too much of conversation happening around the technology and how the technology is a problem.
Yeah.
I've been in AI for 25 years, and more importantly, we've spent a tremendous amount of that time making that real inside enterprises where, it's almost never just the technology that's the problem. Almost every time, it's about the operating model. It's about how you choose to operate, how you choose to get up every day and go to work. And we have to start to think about the outcomes that we want delivered. And the way that we frame it is we think about business outcomes. For the first time, and many of us have been in technology for many years, for the first time, we actually have something that can genuinely produce material business outcomes. We're talking about, for example, a bank that we're working with where we're accelerating revenue for them 4 quarters. They thought it'll take them 26 months to get to that strategy that would generate, and this is, by the way, in the UK, 2 billion pounds of additional revenue, and we're getting them there 4 quarters ahead. We are helping a Fortune 100 client that is putting 200 bips back on their EBITDA as a result of moving to a new way by which they build software. And so it is actually about the operating model. And, that's what we spend a lot of our time thinking and helping our clients with. Really sort of reframe the operating model of how you build software, how you use it. And of course, agentification is part of that whole journey.
So before we dig into the operating model shifts a little more, let's start with something simpler, right? Yeah. Just work allocation. So you now split work across teams that have obviously humans, hopefully still, co-pilots, agents, all of that. Yeah. So how do you advise your clients, for example, leaders, to decide what gets done by whom, especially when they're trying to optimize a variety of things that might often be at odds, right? You've got speed, you've got cost, you've got risk management goals and things like that.
It's a good question. I think it all has to start with the outcome. I think we spend a lot of time trying to figure out where agents can work as opposed to really thinking about how much of acceleration really matters for you, right? So if you are in a situation where your CEO or your CFO or your revenue leader says, listen, I got to get to that in 2 months. I don't have 10 months for it. That actually, to a large extent, will define the operating model that you need to be able to back that in. So if that is the case, then you need to really think about, if you have 30 steps in how you build software, 25 of them have to be agentic. 5 being agentic is not going to cut ice. Right? And so it starts there. And we design then an operating model where if you do the work breakdown structure in the operating model, like if there are 10 pieces of work that you need to do, we then decide and say, look, if you can do 8 of those agentic and the remaining 2 is done by human, then you actually get to the outcome. right? It never takes the human away, because as long as humans are buying from humans, you need the human interface. You need to validate the output through humans need to validate the output. It's always about human in the loop and human on the loop. That's sort of how we think about it.
So there's always humans in the loop, as we've established here. But I guess what you're describing here is you have a core outcome, a core business outcome. Then you kind of throw all the pieces in the air, and you're willing to undergo some level of reset, essentially, to maximize that outcome. Bring agents into the process. AI is a big part of the solution, et cetera, et cetera. To connect this to one of the previous conversations I had in a fireside chat with someone from S&P, are we implicitly saying that we're going to need fewer humans, or are there new sort of roles that are emerging in your experience? Where are we headed in terms of like labor market impact, transitions, job losses, redundancies, and the like?
Well, it's one of these things, right? Everybody loves progress, nobody likes change. And so we sort of find ourselves in this moment where I don't think this is about fewer humans. This is about massively expanding the impact of technology. If today technology impacts your business 10%, tomorrow it has the potential to go to 90%. So the question is really not about, do I need 50 people? The question is about, how can you get 50 people to do the work of 500 people? So you got to 10x everybody. And that requires change. So the question really is, are people willing to go through the change, the cross-training, the up-training? Those to us are more important questions. So this is about that.
So
it's not about
going into that, going into that a little. So you're obviously saying firms need to be a lot more ambitious, probably, than they are.
Set the goals higher.
Yeah.
Set the goals higher as it can, so that it hurts you.
That's right. So now coming to the operating model, there's obviously the whole process side of it, how work gets done, workflows, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's a really huge people and culture side of it. What are the changes that are needed?
It needs to start at the top. I got into some trouble yesterday by making a statement. Well, I will make it here anyway, because people call me a troublemaker. Your CEO really needs to be your chief AI officer. It needs to start right at the top. Like for example, the leader in the company, whoever that is. I just use the CEO as a metaphor, but your leader is really needs to be your chief AI officer, and drive it from the top and lead by example. It can be incredibly frustrating for somebody in the organization at a staff line or to watch what's happening above their head. So I mandate, for example, in my organization that everybody needs to be building agents. I don't do a leadership meeting without my team actually showing me that they can build agents themselves, and I'm talking about EVPs and SVPs in the room. Last year, we did this thing with the company, and I'll share a few tidbits here because I think these are all important. Last year, when we did a town hall with the entire organization, I actually told everybody, I said, listen, many of you are sitting there wondering, the CEO's in the room saying a bunch of things, but ultimately, I'm the one that has to deal with this. So in order to tell you that we're putting our money on the line, we instituted a AI Leadership Award where I funded that award from my paycheck. It didn't come from the company's EBITDA. It came from my paycheck. And as a result of that, now the entire leadership team is funding an AI award for the entire company where it's coming out of everybody's paycheck. But these types of things matter. Now, these types of things may sound corny, but it actually matters to the individual that has been asked to use it. I can tell you for a fact, your people don't need to be convinced to use AI. They're already using it. It's just that they're not telling you that they could actually do it in corporate life as well. So they just need to know that their leaders are in on it as well. So to me, that's where you have to start.
My last sort of key question here, and we would also love to take audience questions. I'm going to leave a couple minutes for that, but measurement, right? There are a ton of KPIs that people talk about.
Love
and
KPIs.
I'm going to guess that you're going to say those are largely the wrong things to be thinking about. Productivity stuff, output by number of people. There's a new one, agents to humans in the company. What do you think of the whole measurement?
That's actually my favorite thing.
Yeah.
And look, It takes 9 months to produce an agent, produce a human, and then about 25 years to make them work ready. At least it took me 25. And we're talking about work ready agents. We're giving agents like a week. So this whole human to agent ratio for me, my take on it is that very soon that would become massively irrelevant. There are companies, for example, we took many years to get to 10,000 people, and we took about 6 months to get to 15,000 agents. So this whole human to agent ratio, I think, will just go out of whack very soon. But having said that, when you think about metrics, my take is I think we start too much with input metrics, because today AI is viewed as a technology problem. AI needs to be viewed as an outcome problem. So in other words, honestly, in our company, productivity is important, but it should be one of the last things we should be thinking about. We should be thinking about outcome metrics. And for us, outcome metrics is 4 things, right? How much are you accelerating your revenue? How much of savings are you putting back on your EBITDA? How are you moving your customer experiences? And finally, are you able to keep your CEO out of jail? Right? So in other words, are you hitting your compliance mandates? Are you able to get to compliance much faster than anybody else? From there on, those are your outcome metrics, and then that will then translate to whatever productivity you need. And I'll tell you the other problem that I see with productivity is the baseline for your productivity is based on how you do work today. So we're talking about 20% and 30% and 40%. The reality is that in the agentic transformation world, you're changing the way you work. So then what becomes the baseline? Today's work model cannot actually be the baseline, because then the percentages don't make sense. So the first step is to actually, in my mind, create a new operating model, establish the new software engineering model. In our case, it's software engineering. And then you use that as a baseline, and then you really start to talk about agentic productivity, as opposed to thinking about, okay, today humans operate at 10%, tomorrow they could be at 30%, right? So that's sort of the shift that delivers outcomes, if you ask me.
We probably have time for 1 or 2, but any questions in the room for KK? Love to get a question or 2. If you raise your hand, we can have someone on the mic over. No?
There's a question on is that?
All right. Yeah, there's a question on Slido. Chaitanya Iyengar. Are you training your employees across all functions to build agents, or are you expecting them to learn on their own?
Great question, actually. We train them to build and use them. Building agents is incredibly important, but that's only 10% of the problem. 90% are agent consumers. So we train everybody to build it, but we do role-based training. When you do role-based training on agents, you can actually take, for example, a marketing person and tell them to not just build agents, but also use it in their work life, and start to talk about how do you change your operating model. So 100%, but build and use, and think about role-based training in the context of agentification. I think that's what we're doing in our company.
KK, any final message for the audience as they seek to sort of unlock this AI arbitrage that we've been talking about?
When does it become too many agents or too little? If we're not able to deliver outcomes, then I think we have the wrong operating model. I don't think it's about number of agents. I genuinely don't think it's about number of agents. You could have 10,000 AI agents, but if they don't fit within your operating model, that's 10,000 too many. You could have 5 AI agents, and they fit within your operating model of how you choose to work, and that's 5 too less. That's sort of how I think about that. My only sort of closing comments would be, let's not treat AI as a technology problem. Let's not treat it as a tool problem. Let's not even treat it as a people problem. It's not about our people. Our people are all there. They're already using it. It is really a leadership question. And as leaders in the room, I think it's very, very important that we lead by example.
Brilliant. Right on time. Thank you so much, KK, and thanks to the audience.